Hello and welcome. I am Exit Light, and this is my channel. Several videos ago, I told the story of a truly haunted house in a small little Texas town called Mineral Wells. During that video, I told you that I had another subject to talk about that also resides in Mineral Wells, Texas, and today I'm going to be doing that. Mineral Wells, Texas is a very tiny, tiny town. But I have an affinity for this place. I feel drawn to this place. I can't tell you why, because I don't understand it myself. But it has this cute little main street with little shops, and there's just something, I don't know, like a throwback to old movies or, Hallmark movies where you see people walking with strollers down the sidewalk and they all know each other. And it just has that type of a feel. So I used to travel a lot between where I live and to San Antonio, and I would drive through Mineral Wells. I had driven through a couple of times, 2, 3 times, I don't know. And on the next trip, I noticed something that I had never noticed before, and I can't explain that because it is huge, monstrous, huge. It sets just back from Main Street. By the way, I need to stop and tell you that this is one of those stories in which I will not be editing my voiceover, so the likelihood that I make mistakes is 100%. So if you catch those, I'm sorry about that. Anyway, there is this huge building set off of the main street, and it is the Baker Hotel. It is abandoned. It is something that draws me in every single time I drive through this town. I have never, ever not stopped and taken pictures or got out of the car just to look at it. I've stopped during the day. I've stopped at night. I've stopped at 3 o'clock in the morning. I have to stop and look at this building. It's magnificent. The architecture is amazing. It's brick, and it has large stairways leading up to its doors. I has stopped before and gone around to I had already seen it from the back of the hotel, which I didn't realize was the back. But if you drive around, you'll see what was intended to be the front of the hotel. And there's a pool. I'll talk about that in a little while. Like the huge entryway with these large columns. It's just, there's a dark feeling about it. There's a quiet feeling about it. It's really a pull and a tug the way you see this building. And there's a lot of history involved in this building, which fascinates me because I love history. So I'm going to tell you about this hotel, and we're going to talk about it being haunted, and I'll tell you a little bit about some of my experiences with this hotel, okay? So it was built by an architect named Wyatt C. Hedrick. And he was the hotel designer on the Arlington Hotel in Hot Springs, Arkansas, which was known for its water and baths, and Mineral Wells is known for its mineral waters. The construction began on the hotel in 1926, but it was stopped because Mr. Baker made a trip to California where he visited a hotel that had a swimming pool, and he decided that the new Baker Hotel must have one in the front of the hotel. The swimming pool was placed on top of the already completed basement, which was used as a work area for the hotel and for a changing area for the guests. There was an Olympic-sized pool to be filled with the curing mineral waters. It was the first swimming pool built at a hotel in Texas. Even after the 1929 stock market crash, the Baker Hotel still enjoyed immense success throughout the 1930s, mostly due to Mineral Wells' growing reputation as a top-tier health spa destination. There were lots of notable celebrities who stayed at the hotel. There was musical, singers and actors and band directors, Glenn Miller, Lawrence Welk, Clark Gable, Judy Garland, the future U.S. President Lyndon B. Johnson stayed at the hotel, and it is rumored by local historians that Bonnie and Clyde spent 1 or 2 nights at the Baker Hotel. The Baker Hotel continued to thrive throughout the mid-1930s, but as the decade came to a close, Mineral Wells' reputation as a health spa was starting to decline because there were so many advances in modern medication, and we'd had the discovery of antibiotics like penicillin. So doctors started to treat with medicine and stopped encouraging patients to go partake in the area's therapeutic waters so that they would invest more confidence in medicine. Construction began the following year on the grand and opulent structure, which was described by the Palo Pinto County historian John Winters as a Spanish, colonial, revival, commercial high-rise. That's a mouthful, and it is all of those. It would rise 14 stories over Mineral Wells. It could house 450 guest rooms, 2 ballrooms, an in-house beauty shop, and other novelties like a bowling alley and a gymnasium. It boasted extravagant creature comforts such as an advanced hydraulic system that circulated ice water to all 450 guest rooms. The lights and the fans were controlled by the door locks to shut off and on automatically when a guest left or entered their rooms. And if you think about that, in 1929, that technology alone was so far in advance. So, understand that this hotel was opulent. There was a valet compartment where the guests could deposit any soiled laundry, and the hotel staff would pick them up without even having to bother the person in the room. And then they could leave the laundry, and the person staying in the room would pick it up and never have to bother seeing the help. The hotel was fully air-conditioned by the 1940s, which, of course, added to its appeal to high-end convention attractions. They had a meeting room with a capacity of 2,500 people, which is incredible when you consider that at the time, the population of Mineral Wells was about 6,000 residents. I don't know if it has that many even right now. It's pretty small. It was completed, and at the time, it would have cost what we now know as $1.2 million, which in 1929, right before the stock market crash, that was unheard of. That was spectacular. And the building instantly dominated the city skyline, unless you happen to be me and you drive through and don't see it. It was the first skyscraper to be built outside of a major metropolitan area. So, business at the hotel started to suffer until a second boom in the Baker's popularity began when the Fort Walters military base opened nearby in 1940. And it was home to the largest infantry placement in World War II. So, the hotel enjoyed its greatest popularity, actually, as a result. And so, throughout World War II, the people who, lived there and or came to visit, um, the population hovered around 30,000 at that time. So there was a large number of people taking advantage of staying at the Baker Hotel. Okay, so let's talk about its haunted history. A few things. Um, there is said to have been a drunken woman who decided to stand on the 12th floor balcony and jump into the pool. And not surprisingly, that was unsuccessful. And she died. There has been said by mediums and psychics and other people that they know of a 8-year-old boy that died in the hotel. He was brought there to help treat his leukemia. It said that there was a cook who was having an affair with a maid. She came in one day. They got in an argument. She told the cook that she was going to tell his wife that they were having an affair. He lost his temper and stabbed her to death in the pantry. It said that the relative of the owner had committed suicide, and that the owner had an entire floor as his home. And it said that somebody committed suicide in that part of the hotel. Apparently, Mr. Baker had a mistress, and the female is known as the Lady in White. She has red hair. She committed suicide. Some people think that she's the person who committed suicide in the Baker residence, and her presence has been known there for a very, very long time. So I'll tell you my experience with the Baker Hotel, because I've never been in it. It has been closed off by the city. At one point, they did do ghost tours throughout the hotel, and I don't know if you can still do it or not, but if you ever get the opportunity and they do, I would highly suggest it. If you're ever driving through this area, I highly suggest stopping, because even standing outside of the hotel, you can feel its energy, its life force. This is a building to reckon with. So I have stood outside of this abandoned 14-story hotel, and I have seen a light turn on in a room. I was just outside. I was alone, which I don't generally recommend, just stopping in the middle of the night alone, getting out of your car. But I was standing out there, and a light clearly turned on in this room. It was on the floor that is supposed to be known as the Baker's residence. I quickly took out my phone to take pictures, and you can see the light on in the pictures, and then the light's gone. I am standing in the exact same place, and I take photos again, and you can see that it's no longer there. I have taken photos in which you can see that I'm not moving. You can completely line these photos up. I have not moved, and you can see glowing lights in several rooms that I did not actually see with my eyes. It came through the camera. I have balls of light that you can see fly through there. It's not dusty. It There was no pollen. The building lets you know that there's something there. I drove around the what is the front of the hotel once, and they have it gated off and locked. However, on this day, the lock was not locked, so me and a couple people snuck into the property, and I had never seen it from this particular view before, and it's amazing. I mean, you can visualize this history in the 30s and the 40s. You can visualize how the females would be dressed, how the staff would look, how the gentlemen would carry themselves. I went to take pictures of the pool, which has an an archway that goes over it, and the archway is to carry you over the pool into the hotel, and looking down into the pool was dirty water filled with dead frogs, which was an eerie addition to already feeling the eeriness of the hotel. You go around to the front and you can see the entryway and how majestic it is. Every detail of this hotel is spectacular. And we walked up the stairs to stand by the front door of this massive building. And I don't know how to explain it. It feels dark. It feels so quiet. It feels like if you touched it, you could feel it breathing. It's almost alive. If you think about it, the intention for this hotel, the reason this hotel existed and what it was used for, was for, well, on one hand, wealthy people to come to a spa, but also, as in the case of that 8-year-old boy who had leukemia that's said to haunt the hotel, it was used for people who were in varying stages of illness, varying types of illness, cancer. So when you really think about the fact that many, many very ill people came to this hotel, stayed in this hotel with the hopes that this water did have some magical, mystical, healing qualities. The fact that their families were praying and hoping that this cure would work. You can understand why this building could carry a heavy feeling of, at once, sort of a hopeful, feeling, a light feeling, because it was used as a spa by the rich and famous, but also this really dark side, this really intense side where these sick and dying people were using this water as possibly their last resort. And because of that, we really don't know, how many people died at that hotel and what kind of spirits are left in that hotel. And that's a very interesting concept that's different from a lot of other haunted buildings or haunted hotels, haunted houses even, is the fact that this was also sort of a hospital, a place where people were praying, begging this water to help them prolong their life, their child's life, their husband, their wife's life. And I think that that is part of the energy that you cannot help but feel. So if you have been to the Baker Hotel in Mineral Wells, Texas, please leave a comment below and tell me, what are your impressions? Do you feel like you could feel the energy of that building? And if so, how did it feel to you? If you had ever gone through a ghost tour, I would really enjoy hearing about that story. If you have your own pictures, I would love to have you go ahead and put them up here. So, I appreciate you coming. If you like this content, please subscribe. I also write stories that are sometimes creepy and scary, and oftentimes they are suspenseful and still scary. If you like that kind of thing, if you know someone who does like that kind of thing, go ahead and send them over here. And if you'd like to be notified when I have new content, go ahead and click that bell so that you can know the second my content is uploaded. Good night.